Hello! Jake the Foxy here in Plasma once again. In the very first video that I ever recorded in Plasma, I built the Foxie Wagon, a special car of my own design. And you should totally go back and watch that video if you haven't already. But that got me thinking, what good is having a car if we don't have any place to drive it? So I set about trying to build a racetrack here inside of Plasma, and this is what I was able to come up with. So, before we actually take a look at the actual racetrack, I'd like to demonstrate how the various components work, namely these various gates that are set up at different checkpoints around the track, as well as the racing computer, which is responsible for both calculating and displaying the various lap times for the race, as well as the total race time. Now, to start a race, you first need to take your vehicle of choice and set it up right before the starting line. Once you've done that, you can then come over here to this panel, which allows you to select the number of laps you'd like to race for. You can go all the way up to 5 laps or have just a single lap. For this demonstration, I think I'll go with 3 laps. Once you're satisfied, you can press this button to begin the race. At that point, the starting line will display a countdown, and you'll have about 60 seconds to enter your vehicle and make sure you're lined up to start the race. So we're more or less already lined up here, so we just need to wait for the countdown to finish and then we can start. And once it gets down to the last 5 seconds, it will light up each of the lamps one by one, as well as play a tone each time to indicate the final countdown to the start of the race. And off we go. Now notice as soon as I pass through one of the gates, the next gate ahead of it lights up green, as well as the display above the gate turns to show us our current total race time. Now, let's say we miss one of the gates by purposefully driving around this one. Notice that the next gate ahead of us is flashing yellow, and the sign above it displays a warning not to go this way. But if we ignore that and drive through the gate anyway, we will then get a different tone indicating that we just messed up. And all of the gates at this point will now be flashing red, and the time will show up as invalidated. At this point, there's nothing that we can do except to go back to the starting line and try the race over again. Now, in order to complete a lap successfully, we must pass through all of the checkpoints in order without skipping any. So we will try and do that this next time to show what happens when you do things correctly. Just as soon as I can line up the Foxie Wagon again here. Also notice over here at the race computer, it now displays an error message indicating that it expected us to pass through checkpoint number 3, but we passed through checkpoint number 4 instead. So if you ever have an error during one of the races, you can come back over here to the race computer to try and figure out exactly what happened. But restarting the race is really simple. All we gotta do is come back over here and press the start button again. That will clear everything and start the countdown timer once more. Alright, let's try and do this legitimately this time. Now, this is actually a very simple chorus. It's just a great big circle, and the only reason why I built this was basically to test out the race gates themselves and the various components before I actually tried building a complete track out of them. And if you will look around to the side, you'll notice some other pieces of test track, which I also built, trying to experiment with the various different vehicles and figuring out what their limitations are, so I could know how extreme of a track I could actually make. Now we're almost back around to where the starting line is, and as we approach, notice that the starting line will now display lap 2 on the text display in order to indicate that this is now the beginning of lap number 2. And the race will just keep continuing on like that until we reach the final lap. Okay, we're on the final lap now, and we've almost made it back around to the starting line once more. And notice as we approach that the display above the starting line now reads finish to indicate that it is the finish line and the end of the race. And as soon as we pass underneath the finish line, a fanfare will play to indicate we've completed the race. And at that point, we can just stop the car and get out and go look at our race times on the race computer. Not only does it show us our total time for the race, but our lap times for each of the laps as well. And from this data right here, we can see that lap 2 was our fastest lap. And that's basically how all the race components work. So next I'll show you how you can try to build your own racetrack using these components. So the way I was able to create the desert track was by first creating a single piece of track like this one here, and then just duplicating that over and over and over again. Now, you can duplicate an item simply by pressing the middle mouse button while it's in wireframe mode, and you'll be doing this a lot if you use this method to build tracks with. Now, if we duplicate that piece again, we can come around to this side and have to flip it over first, and we can just duplicate each piece of the track and keep on extending the track just like this. Sometimes it's difficult lining it up properly, but you get the idea. And now, so far, all we've managed to do is create a single long straight piece of track, which is admittedly a bit boring. So how can we create curves? Now, we'll just duplicate one more piece like this, and now, focusing on that piece, we'll press the H key in order to open the fine-tuning menu, which we can navigate by pressing the W and S keys. And we can input any values we want to precisely using our keyboard. So I'm going to set the yaw here to 10 degrees. And notice, as soon as I do that, that the track now begins to curve. You might also notice that there is this wedge piece here missing, as well as this awkward piece where the track pieces are overlapping each other and start to flicker because the rendering engine has no idea which track piece it should draw. And unfortunately, there's really no way around that, but it doesn't really matter too much because once you're driving on this track at speed, you'll barely notice it. So we can just keep doing this the same way, and duplicating the pieces, and then opening the fine-tuning menu and setting the yaw, and we can slowly start to create a curve this way. It's a bit tedious, but this is the surest way to be able to do it. Now, you might wonder what we would do if we wanted to create a curve in the opposite direction. We can't just open the menu here and set the yaw to -10. That doesn't work because now we have this huge wedge missing here, and this doesn't look good at all. So I'll just set that back to 0, and we'll try doing something else. So first, before we connect that, we'll set it over here instead of connecting it to the track directly. Now we'll move around to this side and grab the piece from here and turn around. Basically, what this does is it's flipped the orientation of the track around, and now we can try and attach it to this side of the track and just line it up like that. And now that might not have appeared to do anything different, but now we're building off of this side of the track rather than this side. So if we focus over here and press H, now we can set the yaw to -10. And look at that. It's just like these curves over here, except in the opposite direction. And so now we can keep building our track just like this, except on this side now, in order to create this curve that swings around this way. Of course, changing the yaw isn't the only thing we can do in the fine-tuning menu. We can also change the pitch in order to create a slope. Like, I just sloped up that piece by 5 degrees right there. Now, if I do that again, add another piece, and change the pitch to 5 degrees, notice this is pitched up 5 degrees, and this piece is pitched up 5 more degrees. So the total grade for our track at this point is 10 degrees off from the horizontal. And you want to be careful with that because you don't want too steep of a grade. Otherwise, the vehicles that you use may have a hard time getting up the slope. And through experimentation, I found that a maximum grade of 20 degrees seems to be ideal. I would not try to make a slope any steeper than that. Otherwise, certain cars might start having difficulties. And to level out our slope, we can just change the pitch. That's yaw there, changing the pitch down, and now -5 degrees. And now you can see it's starting to level out. If I do that once more, you can see the track has now returned to a level position. Of course, you can also try changing the roll as well if you are so inclined. This might be good if you want to try making a banked curve, something like that, where the track slopes towards the inside of the curve. But I would recommend being very cautious when changing the bank of the track, because this creates this staircase artifacts here where the grade changes more sharply, and that can cause some difficulty for certain vehicles. So I would change if you're going to change the roll at all, I would change it very gradually, only changing it by a degree or two per each piece. And that's basically how you are able to build a track. Just do that 10,000 more times and you'll have a completed circuit. So just experiment with it and have fun. But you don't actually need to build your own track if you just want to use the existing terrain to set up your course. But you will need these 3 components right here if you want my components to track your race time for you, as well as help you set up your course. And you can find all of these components within the desert racetrack map, and you can simply copy them from there. Now, the first component here is the race gate, and pretty much all of the gates on the map are exactly the same, and you can duplicate them just by middle-clicking on the root component, which is this bar right here in the back. And you can just set these up at key points along your track wherever you feel they would be most beneficial. And once you've completed an entire circuit and looped back around to your starting point, then you need to go back through and open the sketch for each of the separate gates. Now, if this looks a little bit intimidating to you, you don't need to worry about any of this. All you need to do is go up here to the Variables button and click on that. This will open the Variable Manager, and you want to look for this variable right here labeled ID. And now you want to click on the number over here to change the value. Now I'm going to set this to 1 because every gate that you place needs to have its own unique ID. And you should number your gates starting from 0 and going up through the last gate in the order that you place them. So if you have 5 gates within your course, you would number them 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Now, the 0th gate is special. It will indicate where your starting and finishing line is. So be sure to number your gates appropriately. Next, you will need to place down a race computer somewhere within the world. And it doesn't matter where, although you probably want it somewhere prominent where it can be visible from the track. But you need to have one in the world, otherwise the gates will not work. And once you've placed that, you will also need to open the sketch on the race computer. Now, once again, you don't need to worry about anything in the actual sketch. Instead, just go up to variables, same as before, and this time we are looking for the variable named numCheck. You can ignore all of these others and just go to this variable right here. And once again, click on the number to change it. Now, this number needs to be set to the total number of gates that you have within your racetrack, such as from the example that I gave before, where you have 5 gates on your track, then you would want to set this number to 5. Click Apply and close out of the manager. Now, after all that, you're almost done. You just need one more component, the race starter. And you will want to place this somewhere close to your starting line so that the player can get to the starting line from the race starter fairly quickly. And you need this so that the player has a way to actually start the race, as well as select the number of laps. And there aren't any configurations to do on this device, so once you've placed that down, you are done. Your race is complete and you are ready to try it out. So for the next part, I'll show you the race course that I built in the desert. So I'll see you there. So I actually wanted to use several different vehicles to show off the racetrack, and that's just because I wanted to give you a feel for how the track handles using different kinds of vehicles. And the first vehicle that I've selected should be familiar to most people who've played Plasma before, and it's this little car, which is actually the tutorial car from the tutorial level. And I've made a slight modification to it in that I've updated it to use gamepad controls, and that's just because I personally find them to be much more comfortable, as well as the fact that they give me much greater control over the car, which can be essential for trying to make it around some parts of this track. And the next car that I've selected is actually somewhat of a spoiler, but it's not very big of one because it's sitting out plain in the open on the tutorial level. You just need to look around a bit to find it. And that is, of course, the Patruck, the somewhat secret vehicle from the tutorial level made by one of the developers. And once again, just like with the tutorial car, I've also updated this vehicle to use gamepad controls as well. And the third and final vehicle that I have selected is my very own Foxie Wagon, which I covered in great detail in my very first Plasma video. So if you haven't seen that yet, I highly recommend watching it. Now, I'm only going to do a single lap with each of these vehicles just because I don't want this video to go on forever. So, without further ado, why don't we head on to the starting line? All right, here we go. Sorry if it's a little bumpy. Do we have the lights on? Yeah, we do. They just don't add a whole lot. Now I have to stay on the outside of this curve because this little car has trouble making it over the big steps. And of course it has no trouble getting through these tighter spots. At least it doesn't seem to slow down too much going uphill. This section is also no problem. And we're almost home. There you go. How was that? $5.26, a bit better than last time. All right. Okay, here we go. One more time. Please don't flip out on me. Come on. Why is that one spot so bad? Okay, just have to concentrate now. Oh geez, I almost lost it there. We're okay. Oh, come on. I'm going backwards, but it works. Alright, let's go. Well, I'm able to get through that one a bit cleaner than that, though. Okay. Oh, jeez. Well, that went a bit nicer. Just a little more now. Come on. Go for it! And there we go. Oh boy, how was that? I can't believe we survived that with 4 minutes and 36 seconds. I'm not sure if that is our best run overall, but I'm still pleased with that. Alright. Let's see what the Foxie Wagon can do. Careful. Come on. No. Okay. We got through. That still counts. Come on, don't mess up now. Okay. Okay, be careful here. Okay. Got it. Careful. Don't get stuck on the lamppost. Sheesh. Right before the finish, too. Come on. Oh boy. Well, how was that? 4:12. I think that's our best time yet. There was no real slip-ups there. I mean, at least we stayed on the track, so I think that's still pretty good. I may go with that one, but we'll see. So there you have it. The desert racetrack featuring 3 different vehicles. Now, I actually did not expect that the Foxie Wagon would come in first. All I really wanted was to show off the racetrack itself from different perspectives. I'm certain that some of you guys out there could probably set better times using better vehicles. But hopefully, this at least gives you some idea of what the racetrack is actually like. Now, this will unfortunately be the last plasma video that I upload for a while. But as far as running out of ideas goes, I'm only just getting started, and I will definitely post more plasma videos in the future. So if you enjoy this content, I do hope you will subscribe, and be sure to enable notifications. That way, you will not miss when I start posting plasma videos again. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!